Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Frederick. I'm the Managing Director for Global Events here at Out Leadership. Thank you for joining us today for Out Leadership's This Week in Leadership episode 4. Wow, I can't believe we're already on episode 4. We've had more than 350 people register to tune in this morning, which is pretty amazing. 7 weeks ago, Out Leadership launched a virtual extension to its in-person events, and we've seen a tremendous amount of success. Thus far, we're doing upwards of 10 to 15 of these virtual events a month now, and I've had some wonderful feedback. Some of you may know me from my previous role, where I was the executive director of NYC Pride for over a decade and was part of helping to execute World Pride in New York last year. I'm personally devastated by the news that New York City Pride and many other prides around the world have had to cancel or postpone their events due to the emergence of COVID-19. Pride is that special moment every year where the community comes together to connect with one another, embrace our individual identities that make us so incredibly unique, and show the world that we aren't afraid to love one another. These events are the lifeblood of what connect us all as a community. It's that singular moment that allows us to unite as one. Over the last month, we've had lots and lots of discussions over here at Out Leadership about the impact the lack of Pride events will have on our community. What will that mean for those teens that had wanted to experience Pride for the first time? What does it mean for that couple that wanted to share their love for one another to the world? What are the fundraising implications for so many nonprofits that rely on Pride to raise awareness and needed funds for their operations? So we decided to help out. Out Leadership is going to be launching a first of its kind month-long virtual Pride offering called Proudly Resilient, a roster of digital events that can provide visibility on issues, organizations, and people that matter to our diverse community. Throughout the 30 days, we'll cover a wide array of topics that allow us to pay homage to our history, help us to develop professionally as leaders, highlight our unique characteristics, and most importantly, celebrate Pride. Additionally, we're hoping to help raise funds for community-driven organizations that are overstretched and lacking the means to address imperative issues that so many within our community are affected by. So I hope all of you will join us in June, and feel free to reach out to myself and others at Out Leadership to learn how you can be a part of this jam-packed schedule of programming. As always, you can learn more about all the amazing work we're doing here by heading over to outleadership.com or following us across LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram with the handle @OutLeadership. I wanted to send a special congrats and shout out as one of our dear colleagues, Rufus Gifford, is leaving the Out Leadership team, where he'll be starting as Deputy Campaign Manager for the Joe Biden campaign, fighting the good fight. We'll miss you, Rufus, and we can't thank you enough for your guidance and support. I'd also like to thank all 80 of our member firms, without which Out Leadership couldn't do the important work we do, specifically highlighting this week, Coca-Cola. We have the wonderful Eric Lewis with us today from their team. Coca-Cola has been a member of Out Leadership for over 3 years. Out Leadership has participated in their Partner Summit, where they bring organizations across all their diverse communities together, including Boys and Girls Club, NAACP, and the Urban League. Coca-Cola led our founder and CEO, Todd Sears, to one of his mentees, the Olympian Gus Kenworthy. So thank you for being such a strong supporter. Additionally, I want to thank Barclays, Equitable, PayPal, Capital One, Thomson Reuters, Gibson Dunn, Morgan Lewis, Bank of America, Bloomberg, and HSBC Life. Of course, we have to send some love to our global sponsors as well and thank HSBC, Ropes & Gray, RBC Capital Markets, and KPMG. Your support in these trying times is so incredibly important. Now I'd love to introduce our 3 special guests. Ariel Palitz, who is our Senior Executive Director of Nightlife for the City of New York. Along with this exciting role, she's a native New Yorker, grew up going out in the New York nightlife scene, where she became a club promoter at legendary venues like Tunnel and Limelight and Mars, among many others. She opened her own venue in the East Village called Sutra Lounge and operated it for over a decade. She also served on the local community board for 6 years on the local licensing committee while owning her own business. Before being appointed to the first ever director for the newly created New York City Office of Nightlife, she started and ran a consulting company called Venue Advisors for nearly 3 years to help other aspiring business owners open and run their own venues in New York City. Next, Madonna Cacciatore is the executive director of LA Pride, who's also a vegan, has been married for 16 years, where they were married by the CEO of the LA LGBT Center, Lori Jean. Another fun fact, she was once in prison with Viola Davis. Don't worry though, it was for a small role on How to Get Away with Murder and included a prison shower. She has rode her bike from San Francisco to LA 4 times for AIDS Life Cycle and was a dancer for 42 years. Our final guest is Eric Lewis, who's the president of the BRG group at Coca-Cola. Eric's been married since 2016 and got immediately engaged after the Supreme Court decision granting the right to marry. Like myself, he's from a small town of just 1,200, Greenup, Illinois, where he grew up as the youngest of 7 kids. He spent his career in brand marketing at Coca-Cola and always had the full support of his Coca-Cola family. Huge thank you to the 3 of you for joining us today. I know you're all so busy and we can't express how invaluable your presence is here today for our team and our viewers. Now I'd love to get us started on our first topic. First, I want to toss up to Ariel. As we all know, New York City has been so dramatically affected by the COVID-19 crisis. What is New York City doing to ensure promoters, cultural organizations, and nightlife workers maintain their livelihood during this time of crisis?
Well, first of all, thank you, Chris, so much for inviting me to join this conversation. We became good friends during Pride last year. And really, what would New York City nightlife be without the LGBTQ nightlife scene? I mean, it is the foundation and the heart and the soul of so much of what brings New York City nightlife to life. And it is imperative that we make sure we do everything we can to support it and make sure that there are ways to get back and to continue to create along the way and to connect along the way. I think right now, in a time where there's really no clear answers about what the future will bring and when it will bring it, what the Office of Nightlife is doing is making sure that the nightlife community's voice and ideas and real world understanding of what it's like to go out and to produce and to promote events are part of the conversation when developing strategies on how to re-assimilate, how to open, creative solutions. I think it's important that we get guidelines, of course, for safety from the Department of Health and Sanitation and police. But it's imperative that the people that live it every day be part of the conversation in creating those pathways back and those solutions. So that's what the Office of Nightlife is doing. We've conducted surveys, we have focus groups, listening sessions, town calls, and it's really a two-way street. We're here, this first ever Office of Nightlife. It's almost hard to believe. People say, I can't believe there's an Office of Nightlife. And I'm like, actually, it's hard to believe all along, right?
Yeah.
So right now, for the first time, I think a lot of New Yorkers and people know historically, nightlife hasn't always been respected and appreciated and supported for what it contributes economically and culturally to the city and part of its identity to the world. Now this Office of Nightlife is here to be able to make sure that it has a central dedicated point of contact to make sure it's getting the resources and information it needs, whether you're an owner, a worker, a performer, a patron, even residents that are within the communities that nightlife thrives. So we're here to make sure they get the information, the important information that's coming, and also making sure we're delivering their message as well.
That's awesome. Along with that, Madonna, West Hollywood was very involved in your decision to postpone. It seemed as though that you guys were one of the first to postpone or cancel as it relates to Pride. Tell us a little bit more about that decision and how hard that was.
Well, and thank you again, Chris, for having me. And it's nice to be here with everybody and our community. Yes, we were, this was in March, and we were sort of ramping up. We work with our event producer, JJLA, and we were in the middle of hiring department heads and starting to, book talent and move forward with a bigger event than ever on our 50th anniversary. Actually, it's our 50th year. And so it was a very pivotal point for us because it's very expensive, as you know, to produce an event of that size and caliber. And so we, in the middle of March, the city of West Hollywood, and I think very smartly, decided to hold off on all major events through the end of June, which actually helped us make our decision at that moment because we couldn't have had the event anyway. And it was going to be several blocks long. We were expanding from last year with a free Pride on the Boulevard and a lot of free activations and hubs for our community. And so we basically, in order to sustain our organization, we felt it was best to wait, postpone, and see what happened. And of course, our community's health is the foremost importance in our mind. I lived through the AIDS crisis. My brother died of AIDS in '91. I've seen our community pull together, and I've seen our community struggle with health and issues and mental health issues around that. So we just felt it was, in the best interest of our community, just stand back, keep making plans, not stopping Pride, but to move forward in a different direction until we know where we're going with this.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people oftentimes think that, oh, you just cancel an event and it's easy and just do it again next year, right? What are the financial implications of just canceling an event like Pride?
Yeah, they're huge. I mean, it's when you have great partners. Actually, Coca-Cola is one of our great partners. Sky Vodka. We have great partners who have been with us. And we have very dedicated partners who support our community. They are instrumental in sustaining our organization and sustaining our event and allowing us to create these spaces. And you don't just start spending money the day before the event. I mean, really start planning the event after the last one, and you start determining your footprint. And we've been working very closely with JJLA and the city of West Hollywood and our board and staff to, navigate this huge event, including a conversations hub and things that our community has been asking for, and youth and family pride. We're very disappointed not to be able to do that.
Yeah.
However, I will say that we had to do that. We could not move forward in a way that we had planned to. It's just not sustainable for the organization. And for our board and staff, our most important thing is to be able to sustain the organization so that we can continue to have prides. And we will celebrate our 50th. We're already working on some ideas for that. But it does have a huge financial impact because many of our brand partners are suffering as well, and they don't, might not, their stores may be closing or whatever, so they might not have the funds to be able to support us right now. And if we end up having to cancel, then that does impact those partnerships.
Right.
And that is a huge revenue loss for us. So we're thinking of other creative ways in which to sustain the organization and move forward.
And that's a good way to segue to Eric. Eric, Coke has been a proud supporter of a lot of different prides around the country, including LA Pride. How is it adjusting its participation now that events are going virtual or being canceled outright? How is it planning to still support those organizations and other LGBT organizations during this time?
Well, we're sending a lot of love to everyone out there, first of all. I'm wearing my Love Coca-Cola shirt right now. So sending a lot of love to Madonna. We've always been a strong supporter of LA Pride and a lot of the prides around the world. New York, Atlanta, Miami, San Diego, LA. Really, it's been a global support of the Coca-Cola Company. And I think the message for all of us as leaders is let's be safe and let's make sure we're protecting our community. So let's do everything we can to be safe. Let's practice social distancing, and let's find a way to still celebrate Pride in a virtual way. I think I heard a term, you can't quarantine pride. So that was a good term. And, I think about if we can go to the essence of pride, and Chris, I know you're from a small town, I'm from a small town. Like, I remember my first pride. Yeah. I remember living in a small town in Illinois and driving 2 hours to get to St. Louis. I was believing that I was the only gay person in the world, to realize in St. Louis, I had a whole community of people. And like, that's where I found my tribe. And then, so I think we all as leaders, let's figure out how to not quarantine pride. Let's figure out how to do it in a safe way. Let's bring the essence of pride in a very virtual world. And I think we're all smart enough. We have the right leaders, the support of out leadership. We can figure this out, and we can do it in a way, we're going to figure out how to paint the world rainbow in June in a virtual way. So if you're that kid in Greenup, Illinois, and you think you're the only gay person alive, you can know that there's a virtual world out there and a community of people who will support you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that people haven't really thought about in this kind of virtual pride world we're about to live in, right? Where like before, that teen was having to go to a big city or a big urban center to like really participate in that experience. But the fact that it can now all be virtual, like what impact does that have on those kids that are just coming out, right? And like, and how that has the potential to really change the world in a lot of ways.
I really believe, Chris, we can do it in a virtual way. We can still replicate the same experience, of bringing the community together. We're seeing it at Coca-Cola. Within our business resource group, we are having like weekly, monthly, we're calling them Diet Coke breaks, so that we're getting together as an LGBTQA community, and we're talking and we're sharing. Last week, we had a Diet Coke break where we was like, how to live your best life in quarantine. And it was everything from, if you don't know this tip, like the Melissa Etheridge live broadcast every day on Facebook, like all these little tips that, whether it's Melissa Etheridge or people within a business resource group or a pride organization, we're all figuring it out. Yeah. We're figuring out how to bring our true self to life in this new virtual world and still staying safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really inspiring to see all these virtual events pop up. I think it has so much potential to really unite the world in a lot of ways. One question for Ariel is, you used to be a bar owner in New York. How do you feel like you would have handled this situation as a small business owner?
I mean, I think about that a lot. And it's really hard to imagine the level. Well, it's not hard to imagine, actually. It's it has to be so painful and devastating on so many levels. First of all, when you work together in a nightlife situation, these are families that are created. Your bar family, your nightlife family. My staff, I had almost the same staff for 10 years, from the bus boys all the way up to the co-check. Like, we literally every single night, you're in the trenches, and the things that you experience together on a day-to-day basis really bond you. And as an owner, the sense of responsibility you have is maternal. In a way, you really are caring for and providing for all of these people, and even the patrons themselves become family. So many of them find their friends in their community. They are safe harbors and places where people really do find connection and love and safety coming to your place every night or every week. So from that standpoint, the sense of responsibility that the owners have had, and the difficult choices to have to fire everyone, give them 1 week's pay and say good luck.
Right.
I mean, I can't only imagine how difficult that must be. And then knowing the financial fragility of what many businesses are going through week to week, month to month, sometimes operating in debt. wondering, would I have even been able to recover from this? You know, it's really a labor of love when you do this night after night after night, and the sacrifices you make to in every way, and they're very slim margins, and there's not a lot of room for error. And in this situation, plan A, plan B, and plan C are out the window. So there really has to be a lot of faith in and hope that there will be relief on a federal level. But I think, thank God for corporate sponsors and philanthropy like Coca-Cola and others, the good nature and goodwill will of the patrons who might not be economically suffering, and the Venmos and all of the way that people are personally contributing and supporting their favorite bartenders and performers. This is really going to take the family mentality to get through this together, and the creative thinking. And the one thing that really gives me a lot of hope and promise is that people who have dedicated themselves to nightlife, right? The owners and the workers and the performers and the promoters. These are people that are natural producers, natural organizers, networkers, promoters. They know how to bring together a crowd, to mobilize a crowd, and to activate a crowd. And it's going to take those skills that we learn in nightlife every day to pull this off collectively. And I know that if any community can do it, it will be the nightlife community that not only gets the nightlife community through, but possibly the cities at large in which they operate.
Totally. And it's like you said, like, I think a lot of times people think that bars and restaurants and clubs are swimming in money and savings, and they aren't, right? Like they, you know, so many of them don't really have the ability to even be closed a week, let alone multiple weeks. And so, you know, I'm hopeful that New York will come back, just because
we will come back. It's not an option.
Such a component of our community, right? You know, but along with that, you know, I'd be interested to know from all of you, what long-term effect do you think this will have on large-scale events? Do you think people will start to participate in larger events? You know, is it going to be a year? Do you think it's going to be 2 years? Whether it's events like Pride or Gut Ball in New York, or award season in LA, or the Olympics next year, will these types of events continue to go on, or do you feel like there's really going to be a hesitation on behalf of the attendees and consumers that typically go to these things?
Well, I think that I think it'll come back, but I think it's going to take some time. You know, we all just have to be careful and take care of each other in that process, and not go too quickly, because we don't want to set ourselves back even further. I think if we are cautiously moving forward, that we can, you know, we'll get through this much quicker. If we start to try to do too much at once, I feel like we're going to end up back where we were just a month ago. And if you just think where we were, there's a video of me talking to my 2 month ago self and saying, you know, oh, you're going to want to buy a lot of toilet paper. And you're like, what are you talking about? You know, we didn't see any of this coming. And so we don't want to go through it again, and even worse. And we don't want to lose more of our family. I mean, that's why we have remained connected to your point, to other Pride organizations around the world. We're very active in the Interpride family, and everyone's experiencing this. You know, San Francisco, Boston, and Chicago are also having their 50th anniversary. And so we've remained very, very close and talked about this, because even if you plan something now, you know, where you try to say for 2021, we're going to blow it out in 2021. Well, I feel optimistic that will happen. But, we just don't know. This is an unknown, it's not like we had an earthquake here and we know that we have to have a recovery time. This is a very different situation. So I'm just hoping people will be very, that we will move forward. And I know we're resilient. Our community is incredibly resilient. We've been through a lot, and we continue to go through a lot. And so we just find new ways to celebrate until we can bring those full celebrations back, is my opinion.
I mean, I would just say, I echo everything you say. It is about patience, and having the long-term goal of returning safely and with confidence that it is safe, and to build that trust back into going out. And that's going to be a gradual process that is going to be fortified with the medicine, the vaccines and the cure. And that's ultimately, and the tracing. And that's ultimately what we have to rely on. It's not going to be about hope, right? It's going to be about science. And that science, as it develops, and we know the whole world, this isn't just a New York issue or a Hurricane Sandy issue or 9/11 where it's a neighborhood. The whole world is invested in finding this cure. So we can feel pretty sure that someone's working on this, and there's a race to make sure that somebody wants to get there first, right? So there's a competitive edge to this as well. So it's inevitable. It will happen gradually and surely. But I think in the meantime, it's an opportunity, and there's so many opportunities that we need to see. When people say social distancing, we're not socially distancing, really. We're physically distancing, but we are socially more connected perhaps now than ever, and globally so. And so it's an opportunity to fortify social connection and find ways to be creative and to connect with each other. And I think it is really just fast forwarding us into a better future that we were already hopefully on, to course correct really a lot of the injustices, unfairnesses, the fragilities, the unsustainabilities, even in the nightlife industry. This is an opportunity to course correct our lives and our businesses and our communities. And so we should take the patience and the time that we have as an opportunity to do better.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, yeah. I really appreciate what Madonna said. I make myself crazy.
I hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
No,
I think I made myself crazy. I think I made myself crazy at first with like all these ideas of what if. Like, what if this happens and what if that happens?
Yeah.
Oh.
And really focus on what's happening right now. And I think about what's happening on April 30th at 12:28, and what can I impact now, and what is the situation? Because if I start thinking about a year from now, I was making myself crazy. So I've tried to stay in the moment. I try to address things as they come along. I like this message that Madonna said about let's stay safe. Let's protect our communities. Let's do the right thing. Let's don't rush it. But let's know what. Let's base it on science. Let's know what do we know today, and then we'll figure it out day by day.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to add to that because I'm bummed. I wanted to hang out this is my second year as executive director. It's our 50th anniversary. I really wanted to be with my community in that way. But to Ariel's point, I couldn't feel closer to my community than I do right now, because we're all we're going through this one thing together. And I think our energy is focused on, making sure we're all safe and healthy and live through this in a way that we come out on the other side still feeling proud and, on top of the world. And, ABC7 is one of our media partners, and I was super excited about our second year of broadcast. But what we're doing is talking about different ways of working with them now on that. And I feel like the conversations that we're having now are much different than they were 2 months ago. But they're really inspiring because people are just excited to bring forth ideas and ways in which we can still connect. I can still have a conversations hub or a youth and family pride, but I'm going to have it in a different way this year, perhaps, than, I would have had it had we had that physical celebration.
Chris, there's a great point in the chat from Frank that says, like, what if we took these virtual experiences to strengthen the physical experiences next year or later? Like, I love that point. Like, why don't we make this a growth opportunity? Like, everyone's making the same point. Let's get closer to our community. Let's start building. So then when we're ready to go back, like, it's even a bigger, stronger event for LA Pride when it's time to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I tell the team on our side, like, I look at recessions as opportunities in a lot of ways, right? Like, there's a lot of success that can come out of a recession. Even me, like, I was laid off in the last recession, and if it wasn't for that moment, I would have never been executive director of New York City Pride. In this instance now, I think that we've wanted to do virtual programs for a very long time as an organization. And this has given us the perfect opportunity to kind of dig into that, right? And we're not looking at this as like a short-term fix. Like, this is something that I think long-term Out Leadership is committed to, right? And I think that now we can think about how do we turn virtual offerings and marry the two between in-person events and virtual, and amplify our voice even more around the world, which is really exciting. So I feel like I'm trying to be optimistic in this current stage that we're all going through, and I think that that's all you can have, right? So I think that so Madonna, like, I guess, what are your thoughts on, like, for the bigger prides around the country, like LA and San Francisco and New York, we tend to have a little bit more capital to play with. It's not as though we have a ton, right? But, like, are you afraid of, like, the smaller nonprofits that are, like, shoestring budgets that, like, can't really afford to, like, go a year? And what implications does that have on smaller prides around the country and their sustainability?
That's a great question. I saw on the chat as well from Diana. It's been very important to me and the board of directors to support the smaller organizations as best we can, and also in the Interpride organization, the scholarship funds already in place to help support smaller pride organizations in normal times, I guess. But it's much more impactful now. I mean, we're certainly feeling it, and I can't imagine my friend in the Panhandle of Texas or in Guadalajara or in Tijuana, they're dealing with, can we do anything? So we are actually working on some programs that would potentially help fundraise for smaller prides. That's in our review to do in the next few months, and to sort of see how we as a larger MAMA organization can support the smaller prides. I'm concerned, but I feel like this family is not going to let that happen. And I think that the bigger leaders like New York and San Francisco and Chicago and Boston are all, and prides around the world, Oslo, Sydney, my friends in Sydney, like, everybody is committed to keeping us moving forward. And that is a sense of comfort for me as well, because I don't feel like I'm having this isolated situation, as we discussed before. I feel like we are really connected more than ever, and we're trying to, find ways to help sustain, while, the trickle down is that other organizations who would support us are also trying to sustain. And we also want to support the small businesses, like in the city of West Hollywood. They've been shut. I've never seen West Hollywood like that, but, we're still committed to helping them through. We're looking at virtual events now to sort of help that community as well. So, I mean, we've got all of our thinking caps on. The next step is just the action to move all of that forward. And I feel like we're in a really good place to do that. So yeah, I mean, and I wanted to just quickly talk about the larger events too. We had two larger events that were related to our Pride. We have LGBT Night at Dodger Stadium, and Pride is Universal Studios, and everything shut down. So like the trickle of all of this impacting us this way, and also would have an effect on crowds coming together and not being able to fundraise in that way. So back to your original question, though, we are looking at ways to support the smaller Pride organizations.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now that I think of it, like I almost wonder if there's implications of like Pride organizations, because they have to survive, being a little bit more creative in creating programming throughout the entire year instead of just, let's say, for June or whenever their Pride is held. Do you feel like that might happen, that like Pride organizers are now going to try to do programming year round, or to kind of help raise funds in other ways?
Absolutely, that's what we're doing, because our philosophy is Pride. We celebrate in June, but Pride is all year, and we are actually, this has propelled us into that programming plan to start doing events all year, to be regardless of what happens with COVID, to start virtual events monthly or weekly, depending on the time of year, and to really focus our events around, milestones in our movement and in our activism and in our community. And I think, as a larger Pride, we could also help smaller Prides understand how to do that, maybe through more sort of podcasts or podcasts like this, or just to sort of we stay in touch with each other around those things and help mentor them in those areas.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's so much possibility. Ariel, do you have like an example of some nightlife promoter or establishment that has turned their events virtual that you've been really impressed by? I know that like House of Yes has been starting to roll out some really engaging programs.
I mean, I've been incredibly impressed by the entire nightlife industry. Overnight, every single venue and DJ and promoter and performer went live and figured out the platform and figured out ways to even help monetize and support themselves. When people ask me, like, when's nightlife going to be back? I'm like, it didn't even go anywhere. Like, you gave it like 6 hours and it was back. And people are party hopping and discovering new DJs and figuring out how to support the venues and the DJs and promoters. In fact, to Madonna's point, though, I mean, I had like a vision, as you were talking about, of even aligning those year-long efforts with venues and being able, even virtually, being able to align and to support and to promote some of the venues that have been really homes to the community for so long. Yeah. And so there's a lot of ways to continue that. And I think it is impressive, you know, love finds a way, community finds a way, creativity finds a way. There's always cracks of light in the wall, and that we find our way through. What I've been impressed, you know, additionally, on top of just this wave of creativity and opportunity that people have found, I've now heard people that are getting literally hired, you know, by corporations to host Zoom parties and Zoom events and hiring DJs and performers. I've heard about the way to align with restaurants and so forth, where you can, as a promoter, go to one particular restaurant and you set a menu and everyone gets a delivery and are having the same meal and are doing wine tastings, right? You get 3 bottles of wine along with your meal and you have a DJ and there's it's wow. Yeah. And I think, again, we were sort of already on the route, on that way, you know, headed that way. Like you said, everybody wanted to do virtual programming. This has accelerated it by making it the only way to communicate. And I think it will be an additional stream of revenue that maybe has been needed. And the ability to connect so globally, you know, even all the pride parades and festivals and parties, they don't necessarily even only need to be regional. It can be absolutely and will be global in a whole new way. and local. And I think local is really where we can make the biggest difference, by connecting with the venues and the artists and the patrons. And it has to be together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also interested on, Emily raises a good question that I already kind of had planned to ask, which is, there has been a lot of pushback within the community over the years that like companies just come in for Pride and they just support Pride and that's it. But it'd be good to understand from Coca-Cola's perspective, like what other LGBTQ organizations does Coca-Cola support year round? And is that an important part of your guys' initiative?
Good question. Thanks, Emily. So if you think about prides globally, it seems like they're now spread out throughout the year. So like Miami might be for LA's in June, right, Madonna? So they're kind of spread out, and Coke's been a sponsor of several prides around the world. And then, we don't want to be an in and out. We want it to be integrated into what we do every day at the Coca-Cola Company. And there's like a lot of great organizations we're engaging with like the Trevor Project, the HRC, GLAAD, the Transgender Law Center. I mean, like kind of the list goes on. And then we also think about ways that we can engage with the LGBTQ community through our brands. And one of the projects that happened last year that I'm super proud of the company, we launched the Diet Coke Unlabeled campaign. And so literally we took the labels off of our Diet Coke at LA Pride last year. And we took the labels off because we realized like some labels are good, some labels are bad. And we wanted to start a conversation about labels. So we can leverage the scale of the Coca-Cola Company and the scale of our brands to engage with our community and have a conversation. If you haven't checked them out, it's a Diet Coke Unlabeled. We leverage our own employees in the videos, and a lot of our partners from GLAAD and HRC are also in the videos. But it was really about starting a conversation and being really authentic on how we're approaching the community, and that we're really, we're ingrained. It's not just you write a big check and you walk away. That you're invested. And I will tell you, one other thing as far as the company goes, I've been at Coke now for 20 years, and I've been out the entire time. So I really do feel a great sense of love from the Coca-Cola Company as an.
He'll be back.
I love live broadcasting.
Poof, gone.
He'll be back.
Well, let's go to Madonna real quick while Eric comes back. So tell us a little bit more about this global Pride initiative that's been announced by Interpride. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I'll tell you what I do know. I don't know a lot of the detail, but I do know that June 27th, the Interpride organization is going to do a global Pride virtual event with music and probably some, historic video and different media aspects. So I don't have any details on it yet for you, but it's being planned right now, and we are going to be participating in that.
Are you guys? What are your plans? Have you announced what you guys are doing virtually yet, or is that coming up?
It's coming up, but we're working with iHeartRadio, and we're going to be doing some really cool sort of virtual events with them. One of the potential, we might have some sort of partnered events with our, for example, a bar in West Hollywood and a liquor sponsor, and maybe Sky, and a little fun like 15 to 20 minute segments of virtual happy hour. And we also, in the hubs that we were going to do physically on the street, we are looking at ways to do those virtually. A conversations hub, for example, with activists and people who have been involved in the movement and history is not that, that should be very achievable. So we're working with our media partners on those kinds of historic podcasts or live streaming events. And just, you know, I would say within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some more solid events that we'll be announcing that are virtual. And we do plan to have in June, when we would have had our broadcast with all of the parade that weekend, we will have something on our local affiliate, ABC 7, and we're working on that right now as well.
Gotcha. Have from Ariel or Madonna or Eric, have you guys started to talk a little bit more about like what will need to be in place for in-person events coming back online eventually? Will people have to wear masks? Will there be sanitation stations? Like what do you imagine that looking like once things start to normalize again?
Everybody's going to be dressed in those like in those balloon suits.
Hazmat suit parties.
I do see a lot of hand sanitizer stations in our future, and a lot of, we'll just see. We're going to follow guidelines. I mean, health organization guidelines.
Yeah.
When we produce anything.
Well, I mean, I think we also have the benefit of seeing what is happening ahead of us throughout the world. The Office of Nightlife, there are over 50 offices of Nightlife actually around the world, which a lot of people don't know. And we're connected with all of them. And we're also communicating with them and watching what's going on in real time and how they're reassimilating, what works, what doesn't work. Simultaneously, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing focus groups to really get a sense of the practicalities, because what might come down as a guideline, how it's actually implemented. So, there might be disconnects in how to streamline those so that they're realistic and can really create the optimal safety, but also to make sure that the workers feel safe, the patrons feel safe. It's also psychologically, are people willing to take the risk? What is the risk versus the reward? Is, when I walk in there, do I feel safe? Right now, what we're seeing, just basic recommendations, is temperature taking when you're walking in the door. Obviously, the reduction of capacity, spacing out of tables, partitions, plexi partitions in between where you would talk, disposable menus, the sterilization of pens that are being used. How that's more like for retail and restaurant, but how that really translates onto a dance floor or into a live music concert has yet to be seen. There will be a gradual trial and hopefully no error because the stakes are so high. Ultimately, the greater gatherings will happen when there is immunity and there is vaccines. And there will have to be, I think, the use, of outdoor space a lot more and in a more creative ways. Thankfully, we are going into the warmer months right now for many months ahead. And so to be able to really explore and think about the outdoors, I think it's easier to be able to create community and gathering there. But the Office of Nightlife at the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment is really focused right now, in addition to making sure people get the information about everything that's going on with unemployment checks and PPP and EIDL, which I know I've seen some questions in here about unemployment and how people can get. There's a lot of Zoom calls going on. In fact, there's one at 1:00 right after this. You can go to my Facebook under my name and find a link for people who are artists and freelancers, employers. Tomorrow it's for club owners on the PPP and unemployment and all of that stuff. Stay connected, get information constantly because it changes every day. But in addition to making sure people are urgently taken care of financially, we are focused also on the recovery. And again, getting feedback from the community, from the owners, from the staff members. It's really like the porters and the bussers that really know about how to clean a venue, you know, and we should be hearing from them. Their voice and their opinions also matter. And then we'll be doing recommendation reports, which we do every week to City Hall from the industry's voice about creative ideas and solutions to integrate with the federal, state, and local guidelines.
Is there a website people can go to kind of to access resourcing for small businesses or nightlife?
So many. I mean, first the Office of Nightlife's website is a central point of contact for all city agencies, right? So the Department of Small Business Services, the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Affairs, the Department of Health. There's also nyc.gov. Just in general, will give you all the COVID related, or nyc.gov/nightlife.
Yeah.
You will get all of the links. Also SBA.gov, which is the small business loans that are going out. But if you can't find any of that, just go to nyc.gov/nightlife, and we've sort of created those for you. Also the social at NYC Nightlife Gov. That's our Instagram, which we put up daily information. It's also our Facebook, and you can follow me as well. We're constantly putting town halls, focus groups, listening sessions, providing links. It is imperative that information is the most important thing right now. It changes every single day. The guidelines are evolving, and you don't want to miss that boat. You don't want to have old or false information right now, and you have to have trusted resources for it.
Right. James brings up an interesting question related to big events happening again. How do you anticipate liability issues and concerns, including insurance costs, being impacted? Madonna might have some insight on that.
That's a really good question. We are, insurance costs are probably going to go up. We're looking at that now, but insurance did not cover this particular pandemic because of the way the policies were written, and nobody saw it coming. So now I think there will be other opportunities to sort of add that coverage to insurance policies, but it is going to come at a premium, I believe.
Right. Is there a website or a URL that people can donate to LA Pride?
Yeah, that would be lovely.
As we're talking about insurance costs.
Yes, lapride.org is our website, and you could help us with those insurance costs. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
And we have a donate button there that you can use. Thank you for asking that question.
And I guess it'd be good to understand from all of you, how are you all planning to celebrate Pride this year now that all of our plans are very different?
Well, this might be the first year I actually get to have my birthday with my wife. We're always at Pride together, but she's over there and I'm over there, so but I just plan to, for us, we're going to have a Pride, however we have it, a virtual Pride. So I will be with my board president, Esteban, and our board. We will be heavily involved in those activities and just celebrating, wherever. I guess we'll still be in our houses. So probably a glass of wine right over here.
Ariel?
I think we can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No.
Oh, Eric.
Yeah, Eric is now muted. I think he was speaking. Eric, try again. No, we can't hear you. I mean, for me, I have this unique position at, the New York City Office of Nightlife, and I just want so much to help others to make sure that we can make sure that New York City's Pride is shining as bright and as far and as loud as possible. And my goal is to help in any way that I can with the virtual Pride that's happening, help get the word out, making sure that the entire city is covered in rainbow. And that's my role. My seat at the table right now is to help amplify everyone's voice in a way that can be heard. And I want to make sure that Pride is not muted in any way. And that will be my position on that day and for the whole month.
Awesome.
Now, if we could just get Eric not to be muted, that would be awesome.
I know. You need to write signs. Just write signs.
Beauties of live programming. Well, I know I've actually gotten more involved with New York City Pride in a volunteer capacity. So I've been trying to help out and be more active from a volunteer side of things. So I'm excited to be able to help in any way that I can. But I know that Ariel has to run to a next meeting, so we'll try to wrap up. I
have 4 minutes.
You guys had such good insight, and appreciate all of your feedback. I just want to thank you all for joining us today, and make sure to register tomorrow, where we'll be having our next episode of Leadership Lounge with our founder and CEO, Todd Sears. He will be interviewing the remarkable Peter Grauer, who's the chairman of Bloomberg and was on the Out Leadership Board for over 5 years. He's going to be sharing his perspective on being a leader over the last 5 decades. And it's a show you won't want to miss. Make sure to register and tune in tomorrow at 12. Thank you again to our panelists and in attendance at Pride. Help keep Pride alive by donating, volunteering, and helping your local Pride organization. Now more than ever, your help is needed. Have a great day, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
See you soon. Be well.